We're back on Chicano Tube. I appreciate everyone that's tuned in right now for this special exclusive interview with what I consider Chicano royalty. I don't know if he considers himself that, but I consider this Chicano royalty. So without further ado, we're going to try to cover as much as we can. I'd like to introduce to you the co-founder of the Brown Berets, mi hermano Carlos Montes. Carlos, ¿cómo estás?
Hey, Howard, I know estoy muy bien, gracias. Thanks for
Oh,
inviting me. Yo, my name's Carlos Montes. You know what? I'm not no royalty. I'm just a little kid that grew up in El Chuco, Ciudad Juarez, actually. I was born in El Chuco, right? El Paso, but I grew up in Ciudad Juarez. Came to LA as a little kid and got thrown into this nightmare, man.
híjole, híjole. So we're going to talk about that. I'm going to try to keep it in orden, hermano Carlos. You just went right into what I wanted to begin with. Born and raised. Can you give us a little bit of your background before what most people know you for is the activism? Can you give us a little bit of background in tu historia? Creciste, tus creencias.
Yeah, like I said, I grew up in Juarez, but my family moved to LA. Grew up actually South LA's unincorporated area
Mm,
of South LA. So I went to Miramonte Edison Middle School with Chicanos and blacks, And
mm,
then finally we moved to Boyle Heights. So I did go to Boyle Heights. I went to Hollenbeck and Roosevelt for a year. Good old Boyle Heights, And then my family kept moving. We moved to East LA, right?
mm,
So then I
mhm.
stopped at East LA, Garfield High School. Cruise the boulevard Friday, Saturday, Sunday, listen to the music, Little Willie G, Little Ray, the Village Callers,
Oh,
then we,
yeah.
yeah.
Let me
Yeah,
ask you this, Carlos. How? Go ahead.
but check this out. Growing up in South LA, I remember riding my bike at night, getting stopped by the sheriff, And I go, "What's up?" One of my first experiences, because I didn't have a light on the bike, So what? It's like, who are these guys anyway? But anyway, later on, growing up in East LA, cruising the boulevard, getting harassed, getting stopped, how they go through your whole car with no probable cause.
Sí.
Seeing people get arrested and beat up.
Mm.
And then, going to Garfield High School, man, I almost dropped out, man. They were pushing us into the military, industrial arts. There were some teachers that didn't care about us, the racist comments, so all of us, I grew up with poverty, low wages,
Mm.
in the hood, but I loved our people. I love our family.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to ask you, it's a great segue into this. How was the atmosphere then, back then, for Chicanos? And primarily, just so you know, primarily here on Chicano Tube, la mayoría de la gente que tunes in here son Chicanos. They're Mexican Americans, born here, la descendencia de México, creencias de México, papás, abuelos, etc.
Uh,
How was the atmosphere for you back then? What was the climate in the U.S. for a Chicano?
yeah, when I was in high school, you mean, or as a young man? Well, I
Sí,
mean,
está bien. However,
okay, well, check it out. It was the climate was that we were getting pushed into Vietnam, the military. We had this mass hysteria. The movie, the AM radio was all about the Green Berets. There was a movie by John Wayne, The Fighting Men of the Green Berets, right? And the song played on the radio every 15 minutes. Back then we had AM radio, right?
right, right,
You
right. No
know what
FM.
if you ever know what that is, AM FM, right? And then growing up in East LA, we would get harassed by the sheriffs, right?
Mm,
And later on, I found out about the killing of a young man by the sheriffs, right? And we
mm,
were we were victims of what we call the poverty draft. The draft would target Chicanos and blacks. They had drafts in East LA targeting Chicanos for sending to the military to Vietnam. So we had a high casualty rate of Chicanos in Vietnam, right? Higher than everybody else, right? So the atmosphere, the thing about it, we loved our music though. I remember the young little chavalito when Richie Valens came out, I said, "Oh, fine, this vato, Richie Valens, he looks Chicano to us, So we're all always looking for something that was Chicano, and we're proud of our Mexican heritage, but growing up in the States facing racism, So then we got into rock and roll. There were some of my friends in school that wanted to assimilate. Started changing their names. The teachers tried to change my name to Charlie or Charles, and man, I'm glad I refused. No way, no way. But some folks did do that. So we became brainwashed. We started being ashamed of our background, our heritage. I didn't, right? But I could tell people
Mm.
dyeing their hair blonde, trying to change their name. We were being brainwashed by the educational system, right? And our families worked in factories, providing for us. But my mother didn't know, like many of us, didn't speak English, so I would have to translate for her, going to the store, the clinics.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I would say the atmosphere. We loved our community, our families, but we were facing that mass hysteria of becoming white or assimilation, right?
Okay, got it. I appreciate that. That's a great introduction. Now people have more background on you, Carlos. Thank you for that. Now let me ask you this: the foundation, the foundings of the Brown Berets. Who was there with you in the beginning of the foundations? That's my first question. Who was there?
Ricky Castro, Ralph Ramirez, Cruz Olmeda, David Sanchez. At first it was Young Citizens for Community Action. It was kind of like and then it became Young Chicanos for Community Action, where we became, the group became aware of we went through what they call a cultural awareness, right?
Mm,
Instead of being Mexican American or Latino American, we started, becoming, exerting our pride in being Chicano, right? And
see.
then, we used to meet at the Church of the Epiphany in Lincoln Heights. We had this radical priest, Father Luz, that supported us, got us a grant to open up a coffee house. So we opened up a coffee house in East LA called La Piraña. So I like to say we were way ahead of the hipsters. Even though we didn't have the coffee, we just had soda and water. It was right on the corner of Goodrich and Olympic in East LA. So it was a hangout for young people, right? And and I loved it because it's near my neighborhood in East LA where I grew up cruising, right?
Mhm.
And so we were also influenced by the Black Liberation Movement, right? Everything that was going on in 66, 67, 68. 'Cause remember, I was in high school during the Watts Rebellion, right? And I had a
Mm,
job during the summer as a janitor, working at a school, and I was working with all blacks, and I remember them arguing about the Watts Rebellion. One was all for it, let's get down, let's burn, dude, and the other ones were against it. So I was influenced by the Black Liberation Movement, Martin Luther King, the Black Power
mm,
movement. That influenced us a lot, right? So one day, one of the Brown Berets walked in with a whole stack of berets. He said, "Here," he threw them on the ground. Said, "Here, put these on." Right now, beret was a symbol. The Black Panthers had berets. Che Guevara, the Cuban Revolution War berets. So it's kind of very popular as a way of being militant, of
yeah.
saying or protest conditions, right? So we started putting them on, right? So it wasn't like we had a meeting, we made a motion. It was kind of organic. We started wearing them, and then we started, going down Witter Boulevard, um, talking to the car clubs, the gang members, passing out flyers. Know your rights. You know what? You can't get harassed by the sheriff. You have rights. They have to have probable cause. They can't stop you. They can't go through your car. And we had a rally on Witter Boulevard, and the sheriffs found out about it, so they came after. They raided us, and a couple of us got arrested. I got away that night, but so then little by little we became known as the Brown Berets. The word got out. They
Mm,
got these young Chicanos wearing brown berets. So what we did, we finally formalized it, right? We
mm,
said we're gonna be the Brown Berets, and a Chicano guy, Johnny Parsons, created a patch where it has a beret, La Causa on it, has a cross to represent our suffering, and then two cross rifles to say that we will protest. what we wanted to do now is create a movement to say we want Chicano power. We're going to protest. We acknowledge and respect the generation of the 40s and the 50s, but we said we don't want to assimilate. We don't want to integrate. We're not Latino. We're not white. We're
Mm.
brown. We're indigenous, and we're going to protest. We're going to hit the street, right? And the older folks are saying, "Oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? The LULAC, the GI Forum, the old CSO, right?" And the first thing we did was we did a protest at the East LA Sheriff Station in the winter of 1967. When back
Okay.
then nobody admitted, or everyone denied, there's no such thing as police brutality, right? We said bullshit. There was a young guy. They said he committed suicide, but the autopsy revealed that he was beat to death, and that still happened last year to Adrian Rios, right? And so we had a protest, right? And there was a big scandalo in the neighborhood, right? Who are these young guys? The Brown Berets are protest. We came out in the newspaper.
Mm.
And you know what? The cops came out and started pushing us. And we told everybody, look, don't push back because that's an excuse to kick our ass and arrest you, right? We come out in the local newspaper, the East LA Tribune, calling us outside agitators, troublemakers, communists, right? And I read the paper and I go, bullshit, I live here, man. We're not outside. I just troublemaker. We're just protesting the killing of a young Chicano, right?
Right.
And so that was our first protest. But then we started with the education. I forgot to mention that in high school we had a high dropout rate, or we called it a push out rate,
Mm.
where over 50% of Chicanos in high school were pushed out or dropped out. And like I said, I almost dropped out. The only reason I didn't drop out, I had this Chicano teacher that recruited me to the band, and I love music. Music kept me in there. I loved it. I stuck it out. I was in the marching band at Garfield. And remember, I don't know if the people in Salinas know this, but Garfield and Roosevelt have a rivalry. We call it the East LA Classic. It's the biggest high school football game of all of Southern California. And a couple of years ago, we had it at the Coliseum. This year, it's going to be at SoFi Stadium.
Oh wow.
They're going to have Black Eyed Peas perform, you know. But back to the Brown Berets, right? So
Mhm.
so we started meeting with students, with teachers, and passing out flyers, going to community meetings. But let me just kind of take step back and make sure I'm okay with your questions. What you I was gonna get into the walkout.
No, 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 no. Absolutely. We're during this time. Okay, thank you for giving that. That's the formation of the Brown Berets. That's history right there, Gente. You just heard it. He just named the founders, because sometimes we don't. They don't know. The raza doesn't know the story. They figure they watch Chicano movies and maybe they just they knelt down, said "Vatos locos forever" and got some ink but it looks like you guys had a social club. Would you say that the Brown Berets formed out of oppression?
Yeah, yeah. You know what? We were young, angry Chicanos, right? We were
Mm.
angry with getting pushed out of high school, getting harassed by the sheriff, racist comments in the schools, right?
When you say getting pushed
They,
out, what is a Chicano facing? Going to school every day, or what are the güeros telling him? What was all this getting pushed out? What led the Chicano to say, you know what, I'm done with that?
yeah, yeah. Well, we had teachers that didn't care about us, that made racist comments, and if you
Mm.
dressed, with the khakis and the Pendleton, you would really get harassed by the teacher. They would expel you, throw you out, right? And I
They
saw
could
that
expel you for no reason
for no
back
reason,
then.
for no reason, for no reason, just because you dress different. And I always respect the guys in the neighborhood with the different, that they always stood up for their rights, but they faced a lot of oppression by the sheriffs, by the teachers, getting expelled. And I remember in high school when turned 18, they called me into the vice principal's office. They had me register for the U.S. elective service system. And I said, what the hell are, I said, why are they doing that? Their role is to educate us, not to track us into the military, right? Or to get us
Right.
ready for the military, right? So, what, yeah, so that was the conditions, back to your question that we had a high, instead of, there were tracks in the high school. I didn't learn about it till later on. There was only a select few people that took care of. We
Mm,
made fun of them, the people that would carry little pins and stuff in their pockets, right, and
mm.
briefcases, right, and so they took care of them. They would go to college. The rest of us, they were pushing us into auto mechanics, shop, ROTC, because they say you're going to go work, you're going to go in the military, right, and if you couldn't hack it, then they pushed you out. The push
Yeah.
out, dropout of the high schools, Garfield, Roosevelt, Lincoln, Wilson, we had high dropout rate, or we called
Mm.
it push out, right?
Oh,
And,
yeah.
uh,
Let me ask you
yeah.
this, Carlos. Were you ever personally persecuted, assaulted by the PD? And if you can you recall an instance?
Well, I was when I became active. I got harassed, stopped, cruising the boulevard, just getting stopped. And if I would object to it, why are you doing this? They would. I remember one time, I was with my friend, and they stopped us. And I mean, literally, they would go in the back seat and pull out the back seat, right? And I said, "Oh my God, give me!" And I remember one time, my friend who had dropped, who had gone to Catholic high school, but
Hmm.
his mother couldn't make the payment, so he came over to Garfield, and he didn't know about it, and he started to tell the sheriff, "Hey, you can't do that." I told him, "Don't say anything. Don't say anything." I told the guy. But he said, "Hey, you can't do that." He told that to the sheriff, right? The sheriff came up to him and he told him, "See this billy club? I can stick it up your ass, bring it out of your mouth. So shut the fuck up," right? And my friend was in shock. And I told him, "I told you, man, don't say shit with these cows. You're out here at nighttime. We're young, they could do whatever they want, you know what I mean?" Later on, when I was an activist and I got arrested, I got my ass kicked inside the county jail by the sheriffs. And also, one time I got pulled over by the LAPD by myself, and they knew who I was, and they just had me stood there and started hitting me, and but
Yep.
yeah,
That was typical for a lot of the
that was
raza back then.
Yeah, that was typical for the young folk. I worked with young people in the neighborhood, and they would tell me stories. Teenagers, we get stopped, we get harassed, we get beat up. But the worst thing, the killings, we exposed the killings of young Chicanos. Like I said, in the 60s, people did not believe that there was police brutality. I mean, in our neighborhood, we knew about it, right? But we exposed that when we did it in 1967. We said that the killing of a young man at the East LA Sheriff Station, which, by the way, I continue protesting even today. There is a deputy sheriff gang inside the East LA Sheriff Station called Los Banditos. It's a bona fide gang. They have their ink, and the way they have prospects. The way they get in is by arresting, breaking bones, and killing. It's called Los Banditos. You can look it up. LA County Sheriff Department, they have the Green Reapers, the executioners, the Banditos. And the new sheriff, Luna, says, yes, there is gangs. I'm trying to get rid of them. But
No,
back to you. So,
no, absolutely no, no. Yeah, I want to get into this, Carlos, also as well. Something that's a very popular point of Chicano history, which is the moratorium. First of all, was there more than one moratorium?
yeah, what happened is that in '69, we had a big meeting at the Brown Berets in Bow Heights, and
Do you remember?
moratorium
Do you
was
remember the date on that meeting?
well, it was around November, December of 1969.
Okay, thank you.
Had a meeting, and we said we're going to have moratoriums are taking place all over the U.S. And moratorium was no to war. Moratorium meaning no,
Mm,
stop it, right? So we had a meeting. We said we're going to have a Chicano moratorium, right?
mm,
So everybody said, yeah, let's have our own Chicano moratorium. So we organized the very first one was December 20th, 1969. And there's
mm.
flyers out there that document it, right? That was the
Yeah.
first moratorium where we said we're going to denounce the high casualty rate of Chicanos in Vietnam in relation to our population in the Southwest. That was a study done by Dr. Ralph Guzman out of UCLA. He published it. We didn't know. We read it. We got pissed off, man. Not only are we in jail, not only are we getting harassed and killed, now we learned about the poverty draft, the targeting Chicanos for the draft, and then putting us in the more dangerous positions in Vietnam. Even today, in Iraq, they put all the raza in the gunnery crews. The Marines put you in the gunnery
Mm,
crews, in the front line, we have a high casualty rate. So December 20, 1969, we marched from Evergreen Park in Ball Heights. We marched down the hill. We went to Obregon Park, had a big rally. We had several thousand people there. And Obregon is a young Chicano that was killed in the war. They named the park after him. There used to be a Loyo, one of the neighborhoods, a Loyo, right?
mm,
That was the first one, okay. And then there was another one in the rain in March of 1970, several thousand. You could look it up, and people are marching in the rain, they're all wet. But the big one was August 29, 1970, where at least 30,000 people marched on Whittier Boulevard saying, Raza si, guerra no. Our fight is here at home, not in Vietnam. We had a big peaceful rally at Laguna Park, right? And we were brutally attacked by the combined forces of the LAPD, the LA County Sheriffs, in coordination with the FBI. J. Edgar Hoover, Nixon at that time did not want the Chicano movement to unite with the broader white anti-war movement, right? So we were brutally attacked. They used a little incident at a store, and the store owner said, "I never called the cop. Nothing. I just Anyway, you could Google Chicano moratorium record
mm,
29 or 20 years decay, and you
mm.
show with the police just ran into Laguna Park, tear gassing, beating up. They tear gassed the whole community. So the people rebel. We rebelled, and I call it a rebellion. Some people call it a riot, right? But the whole
Mm,
Whittier Boulevard went up in a rebellion. And I want to say that Ruben Salazar had interviewed me and David and Ralph and Gloria Arellanes in 1969, right? He was originally, by the way, Ruben Salazar was born and raised in Ciudad Juarez.
mm,
And he moved to El Paso Times. Then he was working for the LA Times. They sent him to Mexico City. They sent him Santo Domingo, Vietnam. He was an international correspondent. And then they brought him back to LA to cover the Chicano movement, right?
mhm.
And he wrote about Chicanos. What is a Chicano? What does Chicanos want? You could look it up at LA Times archives. He wrote about police brutality, immigration abuse. He was even called in by the chief of police and told him, and to use a nice word, admonished him, right? They told him, hey, don't be doing that. And
Right.
and you know what? He continued doing his work, and he told Chris Montes, who was a commissioner on civil rights of the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, he feared for his life. He knew he was being
Mm,
followed and investigated, but he kept it up. He started a news station, KMEX, Spanish language news station, that now a big old time Univision, right?
mm, mhm.
Was on the ground August 29, 1970, with his cameraman, Restrepo, covering the rally and then covering the rebellion. And during the rebellion, the tear gas and all the chaos, he took refuge at the Silver Dollar Bar. And you could study that whole thing as to what happened. The sheriff showed up and surrounded the bar. Allegedly, they got a call from an unknown, a man that said there's a man with a gun in the bar, right? And they never say who he was, never documented the witness, right? So anyway, there's a picture where Ruben and the cameraman wanted to leave, and they showed their IDs, their IDs, and they all pushed them back. There's a picture of the sheriff with a shotgun at chest level, yelling, saying, "Go back in." And we have those photos and testimony because Raul Reese was there when that happened.
Mm.
Anyway, what happened is that the sheriff shot a tear gas missile projectile, not a canister. I don't want to hear anybody say canister. A missile projectile flight right that is used to go through walls when someone is behind a wall, doesn't want to come out, right? And they blew his head open. He killed him. So we always say, not think, know that it was a hit. It was assassination of Ruben, our martyr. So
Now, I saw on
yeah,
a video that you also, correct me if I'm wrong, you also left the country. And was that because you were fearing for your life at some point,
yeah,
thinking
yeah. Yeah,
they
by the time that Ruben interviewed me, I had been arrested for the East LA walkouts, conspiracy to disrupt the school system. 13 of us. I had been arrested by a conspiracy to commit arson against Ronald Reagan, the governor. Okay, at the Biltmore Hotel at a education conference called Nuevas Vistas Conference. All we did was go there and protest, and the Biltmore Hotel was already surrounded by fire people. They had the state police, the local police, right? And the fire was set by undercover agent provocateur, and they tried to blame it on 10 of us, the Biltmore 10. So that was another arrest. But because I was made the spokesperson of the Brown Berets, I would speak at rallies and marches. I was targeted with arrest. That's when I got arrested one time, and I got my ass kicked inside the county jail. I was one of the only ones that was a student at East LA College, and we had a group there called La Vida Nueva. We organized a strike, a student strike, to demand Chicano studies, right? Because earlier, like I said, we were brainwashed by American vanilla history in the high school as well as in the college, right? So we
Mhm.
had a big rally in front of East LA College, and the administration called the sheriffs, and they came in and they pushed everybody and arrested folks. But we eventually won Chicano studies. But after I got my sister and the other members, I drove home to drive everybody. I was arrested like a block away from my house, alleging that I had assaulted a cop during the protest. Right.
Mm.
That's how I was arrested, and when I was in jail, that's when they kicked my ass. They put me into the day room, and boom. And when you're in there by yourself, all you could do is just fight back. But Sergeant Lee Ceballos, who had was head of the intelligence unit, they call it the PDI, the Public Disorder Intelligence Division,
Mm.
had sent in over a period of 3 years, two undercover cops. People call them narcs. They're not narcs. They're intelligence officers. But they were Chicanos. Hey, want to join the Brown Berets? I said, okay, join. The
Mm.
first one, when we found out he was a cop, we started doing security checks. Right, the security checks. You got to go to their house. Got to call their high school. Make sure that what they said is true. Right. The second undercover cop they sent in, Sumaya, they used his real name and his real high school. So when we called his high school, I think Coachella High School, said, "Yeah, he was graduate." So then, okay, and then we went to his house. Some of the Braves went to his house. He had an apartment, so we thought he was all right, right? But he always carried a cuete, and he always wanted to go, break the windows of the Safeway because they wouldn't boycott grapes during the United Farm Worker boycott. And we just thought he was a militant Chicano. As it turned out, he was a cop, and he wore a Pendleton. He had tattoos. He had long hair. And we just thought he was a militant Chicano, right? And like I said, we had called his high school and they corroborated that he had graduated there. And he's the one that set a fire inside the Biltmore Hotel and tried to get 10 of us arrested. This is what you call an agent provocateur, right? The police, the FBI, they do this even today to neighborhoods, to political organizations. Uh, they've done that, unfortunately, to the Arab community, to the anti war movement. They infiltrate, they send agent provocateurs, and they do entrapment. Entrapment is when they orchestrate, they talk about doing some kind of action, illegal action. They get you to do
Right.
it, and then they blame you for. I'm sure the people in the neighborhood have heard about that. I'm sorry, did you want to stop me for?
No, absolutely not. No, I mean, what you're saying is that the U.S. government infiltrated from the inside out in
Yeah.
order to maybe gather intelligence on the Brown Berets.
To gather intelligence, the first one that went in there was to gather intelligence. The second was to create disruption and destroy the organization. Because the
Mm,
Fernando Sumaya, like I said, he carried a cuete all the time, a gun, and he always had a car, and he's the one that actually did get some berets who were former airborne guys from Vietnam. They came from
yeah.
Vietnam, they're airborne, 82nd. I remember Big Al and Billy Rivas. He got them to go with him to go firebomb a Safeway store, but there was a setup. He set up. They got arrested. They got their ass kicked, and he did the same thing at the Biltmore Hotel. He started a fire, and he blamed it on 10 of us. So it was the agent provocateur is used to entrap and to destroy an organization, right? So we had to defend ourselves in court. So in my case, Sergeant Subaya came up to me one time, showed me his gun. He said, "Carlos, man, you're going to be dead, or you're going to spend the rest of your life in jail," right? And literally, when I do my life scan, I got arrested at least 10 times. I'm not exaggerating. The Biltmore case, the East LA High School walkout case, the on strike case, and just cruising the boulevard or driving, while Brown, a Brown Beret, put a target on us.
And
And
were they all jail stints, or did you ever
you
go to
know
the
what? You
Pinta?
know what happened? We would always. One time I was there for a couple of months in the county jail trying to get bailed out. I was already in jail in the county jail on a alleged possession of a gun, right? Which I beat, right? But then the Biltmore case came out. So I'm sitting in the county jail and I open up the newspaper like, oh shit,
Mhm.
we're getting indicted for conspiracy to commit arson, right? So what happened though is the movement. We always had lawyers. The famous lawyer, the Chicano lawyer, the Brown Buffalo, Oscar Zeta Acosta. He wrote the book Revolt of the Cockroach People, and his character comes out in a Hunter Thompson movie. Forget the name of the movie.
Mm,
Oh, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, something like that.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, but he's a tall. He looked like like a Samoan guy, right? But anyway, we would always go to court, and I loved him because he would always argue with the judge. He even got put in jail for arguing with the judge one time. So I beat most of the cases. I never did any long time,
Mhm.
but I was in and out of court. I got my ass kicked. Ceballos told me you're gonna get killed or spend the rest of your life in jail. All I was doing was going to court, right? So I decided I'm gonna fuck it. I'm gonna leave the country. I'm gonna try to get to Cuba. Back then, the idea was to either go to Canada or go to Cuba. So me and my wife Olivia, born and raised Bull Heights, we got on a bus in Tijuana, took it all the way to Mexico City, man. Long drive.
That
We stayed
is.
in Mexico City a couple of days, and then we got on another bus, took the bus all the way to Merida, Yucatan. Yeah, we didn't want to take a plane because we figured you get in a plane, you got the idea they're gonna,
IDs.
right? We get to Merida, Yucatan. Our plan was to get on a boat and just go to Cuba. You ever been? You know how Yucatan is close to
Yeah, right
Mexico.
at the boot.
Yeah. Anyway, the boot. Yeah, there you go. The boot. Anyway, we get off the bus into the air conditioned bus train. It was cold, right? We get outside. Bam! It was hot and humid in Yucatan. Have you ever been over there, Mike?
No, no, but I've been in humid temperature. I could imagine. Ya está sudando the first minute.
So we get out and we said, "Wow, what is it?" We found a restaurant. We walked around. And then, you know what? This is nice here. So then we rented a hotel. We got killed by the mosquitoes, and then we walked around. Anyway, we decided to stay there. It was really nice, right? We
Mm,
learned about the Mayan culture. Our neighbors were indigenous people. They spoke Mayan. We had it like an apartment with like one room with a bunch of apartments, and we ended up having to get a mosquito net. We slept on a hamaca, and we started going to the ruins, Chichen Itza, Uxmal. So I really appreciate the Mayan indigenous culture. I know a lot of our neighborhoods, a lot of our people say we're Azteca, Mexica, and all that, but I really appreciate the Mayans. The
mm.
Mayans were very advanced astrology, surgery, uh, you know, um, you know.
Yeah. And
Anyway,
again,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you were fleeing because you felt your life was in danger.
yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. It was Arjun Lisa Bayo. Oh, I forgot to mention one time we went to court when the Somaya, the preliminary court, when Sumaya, the undercover cop, was going to testify at a preliminary hearing to, see if there's sufficient evidence to hold you over for trial. So it was at the Oak Hall of Justice downtown where they had the Sleepy Lagoon case, the Sirhan case, the Manson case.
Oh yeah.
So I had a part-time job. So we go to court. We're sitting in there. Us all Brown Beret men and women, right? And I had a little briefcase because remember I mentioned I was going to ELAC,
Yeah.
had my books in there, and I sat in the crowd, and then Sergeant Abel Armas of the LAPD sat next to me,
Mm.
and he looked at me, and he opened up his coat, and he put his hand on what looked to me like a big 57 Magnum revolver, right? And looked at me and like, oh, what the hell, this is in court, right? Sitting in court. So I go, oh, fuck. So then I heard, oh, shit, I got to make a phone call to my job saying I'm going to be late. I'm in court. So I come out to the lobby. I get in the old phone booth. The young
Yeah.
people know what a phone booth is out there, man, with a phone. So I get my quarter and start dialing. And I'm talking to my supervisor. Hey, I'm gonna be late because I have something to do. And then all of a sudden, Abel Armas comes, big, tall, husky, with a couple of other suits, and starts pushing the door in. The phone booth, and I'm like, what? I'm on the phone, and my legs are stuck, and I try to hold it. I don't know what to do, and bam, they pushed it in and dragged me out on the floor, right? And by that time, though, the Brown Beret men and women had come out, and there was a yelling and pushing, right? And check this out: one of the other white cops, when they had me on the ground and they had my briefcase, he had a gun and he would try to put it in my briefcase, but everybody saw and yelled, "Hey, and he put it back in, right?" But I got arrested for resisting arrest, right? So I was saying, damn, I even going to fucking court and I'm getting arrested. So that was the atmosphere I was living under, right?
Right.
Uh, you know, going to court, getting arrested in court, being beat up in the county jail, and
Qué vida.
yeah,
Qué
no,
vida.
and we know nowadays, they kill these young men, and they kill Anthony Vargas, they kill Paul Rea here in East LA. Now I'm talking the last couple of years, and they always say, "Whoa, he had a gun." Well, we know they have throwaway guns, right? And I know I saw it myself when they tried to put it on me, But luckily, everybody yelled and saw what he's doing, right?
No,
So
yeah.
yeah, so I left the country. I go, yeah, hell yeah, I'm not gonna be beat up and killed by the LAPD or by the sheriffs. So I lived in Yucatan for over a year. I got to learn about the Mayan culture. I loved it. I decided not to go to Cuba. It was really nice there. but I ran out of money, so I had to start, making some dollars, right?
Right, right.
So I hung out with the cab drivers because my father was a cab driver in Ciudad Juarez. We lived
Mm,
in Juarez. So the cab drivers, they took me under their arm. They said, "Look, what you got to do, man. We go to the airport, and when tourists get off the plane, you got to like, since you know English, you got to talk to them. Said, hey, look, we'll get you a hotel, we'll get you a tour of the ruins, and let them know that we could charge them less than the tour agency. The tour agencies were charging $100 a person.
mm.
So the cab guys told me, look, tell them we're charging $50. And with that, we get a cab driver to take them. We get a tour guide, get them a lunch, and you still got $10 for you, And back $10 were big time because we
Right.
get living in Mexico, a dollar. People working per day were making 12 pesos a day, or which is $1 a day, or 24 pesos. Anyway, I started working with the cab drivers, and then organizing tours to Chichen Itza, Uxmal. It's kind of hilarious. A Chicano from Chihuahua, Ciudad Juarez, right, helping organize tours in
Yeah.
Yucatan.
But at least you're in an environment where you're safe. O sea, you feel safe because you came out of an environment where you felt like the setup was coming.
No, yeah, no, I felt safe. The people there, they always wonder, what are you doing here in Yucatan? You're from Chihuahua, right?
Mhm. Right, right.
and
Uh,
and I had to tell them, so my parents are from Chihuahua, La Tierra de Pancho Villa. My abuelito was a teenager in the Mexican Revolution, got his leg shot off. And I would tell them stories. So they would say, oh, tú eres el mexicano. Porque in Yucatan, they're real proud of being Yucatecos.
oh, okay.
They're kind of separated, like you said, the
Mm,
booth. They're so far away that they would tell, oh, ahí viene el mexicano Carlos. And I would say, todos somos mexicanos. And, oh, no, no, tú eres mexicano, nosotros somos Yucatecos. They're real proud of being Yucateco, right?
mm,
Back in, 100 years ago, they almost separated.
right.
Seceded from Mexico. There was a war. I don't know if you read about that. A lot of
Mm,
history we don't know. That's why I always say,
yeah,
we got to learn our history, Chicano
absolutely.
history. Yeah.
And
Anyway,
let me
yeah.
can I ask you this?
Sorry about
How,
that.
to your knowledge, hermano Carlos, to your knowledge, how many brown berets, and we only got one more question after this, we'll wrap up. How many brown berets have fallen throughout the decades that you know of from oppression, again, assault, muerte, etc.? Do you know how much is the number of official, maybe close hermanos of yours? Maybe or did any of the founders pass away under any kind of assaults or anything like that? Or how many brown berets have passed that you know of?
Remember, I was on the run for 7 years. So I
Mm,
know that, none of the founders, leaders were killed by the man or under
okay.
circumstances. I do know that the 200 copper cops are dead, right? And then, but at the Chicano Moratorium, Ruben Salazar, Lynn Ward was a Brumber. He died. He wasn't directly killed by the cops, because it was a rebellion. There were fires and all kinds of stuff. He died in one of the fires, right? Lynn Ward, but Chicano. And then, what's the other one? I got COVID twice, so my memory's not my memory's
No,
not that.
I
That's
get
my
it.
truth. Angel Diaz was killed by the sheriff that day, but that day
Mm.
at the moratorium, they beat the hell out of him, right? So I don't know the number over the years that were killed directly by the cops. Yeah,
But people personally that you know, you say at least two that you knew personally that were
yeah,
there in the beginnings. And when you say moratorium, you say that there's been three. The last one was the biggest one with 30,000 in the crowd, but there's been three, right?
yeah. Of August 29, 1970, and
Another, yeah,
that was the big one. And now we do the commemorate the Chicano moratorium every year. By the way, hopefully Salinas can have something over there. We're coming up on the 55th anniversary next year. You all should do something. Do a rally, do a forum, a march. We're gonna do a march and rally in East LA. We did it for the 50th, We had it was during COVID, and some of the old macho guys that moved out of the neighborhood. They don't live and they live in rich areas. They want to come and tell us what to do. We said, no, man, we're gonna have a march. They want to have a concert and make money, right? And the cops were again. We marched down Wheeler Boulevard, and
We just want to voice our voices, and they're thinking commercialism.
no, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, we have a right to protest, to organize, to denounce. The ongoing killings. The Chicanos continues. The attack on privatization of education by privatization, and also, the warmongers, Trump,
Mm.
who continues to insult our people, to threaten to deport us. So
Let me ask you this,
what
Hermano, can I ask you this? Did the United Farm Workers have anything to do with the activism, or were they on the sidelines the whole time because their whole deal was ag labor, or were they activists también side by side in the Chicano movement?
Well, no, 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 and the Brown Berets supported the farm workers, the boycott, right? And they were, yeah, not side by side, but the Great Delano's strike started in '65, so we heard about it, we read about it, we said we got to support them. So it was part of the Chicano movement of the late '60s, right?
Mm,
With the Brown Berets and the East LA walkout, we were the first urban uprising of Chicanos in the big cities, in
mm,
March of 1968, when 5 schools walked out of the East LA schools saying, we want bilingual education, Chicano power, we want ethnic studies, right? So during that time, the farm workers came to the cities to get support for the boycott. So we supported them, right? And so they're part of the '60s, the Chicano power movement, but primarily the struggle was in the field, agricultural field, right? And a lot
mm.
of our families, come from that background. My father worked in, at a factory, assembly line factory, where they had a union, the carpenters union. He was a shop steward. They went out on strike, and we supported them, right? So
So they were involved in the activism.
yeah, yeah. My father was a union shop steward because he was bilingual. So I think he got elected mostly the Chicano Mexicano workers. So yeah, no. I mean, I remember. We went downtown to the Grand Central Market to protest the arrival of grapes, right, from big trucks. And we were there with Fred Ross. He gave us a bunch of picket signs. We were picketing, but then the trucks arrived and they started unloading them into the loading docks.
Mhm.
And we just kept marching. And then we said, what are we gonna do, man? They're just unloading all the grapes. Anyway, so some of the young teenagers started pulling the big crates,
Mm,
knocking them down.
yeah.
And then everybody started just pulling all the grape crane. Boom! They all shattered on the floor, and the workers just they didn't know what to do. Anyway, Fred Ross called it off because he said, "No,
Okay.
nonviolent." I said, "Well, we just come on. You're letting the grapes come in. Be nonviolent." To us, we didn't believe in nonviolent. We believe in self-defense. We didn't believe in advocating violence, but we believed in
Mhm,
self-defense. That's why we went on Wheeler Boulevard, had rallies with the gangs and the cartels, say defend your rights and protest. That's why we did the walkout. We ran into high school selling walk out. That's what we did, the big march against the war in Vietnam. That's why we protested the sheriff's station. We're gonna do walkouts, we're gonna do marches, we're gonna do rallies. And if we're attacked, we're gonna defend ourselves.
mm. And did you personally know Cesar Chavez or Dolores Huerta? Did you ever
Yeah.
meet them?
Yeah, I met Sara Chavez a couple of times. I know Dolores very well. I got to
Mm,
know her over the years. Because, by the way, the group I work with now is called Centro CSO, Community Service Organization. Cesar and Dolores joined in the late '40s, early '50s, and were trained by Fred Ross, who helped organize the original CSO. And they elected the first Chicano in the city council, Ed Roybal, and
mm,
and they had chapters all up and down San Joaquin Valley, even Salinas, Porterville, Santa Maria, Visalia, right? Organized, and then Cesar learned how to organize in the original CSO, Community Service Organization, and so did Dolores. But in 52, 53, Cesar made a proposal to the statewide meeting of the CSO that CSO should start organizing farm workers. And he thought they were going to pass it and approve it, but they didn't. It didn't vote, pass the vote. So he left CSO and he started the Farm Worker Organizing Committee, which went on to be the UFW. And then Dolores left and joined him later on, right? And that's history. So I see Dolores all the time. I saw her a couple of months ago at a rally.
Mm.
One funny thing, I'm based in East LA, Ball Heights. I fight against police abuse, against immigration abuse for public education, and to support the Palestinian people. But periodically, I'm invited to go speak. So I get on the
Sí.
plane. One time I had a layover. I was on my way to Chicago, but I had to stop somewhere. And I
Mm.
ran into Dolores. We started talking and talking, and we almost missed our flight. We said, "Hey,
Oh,
Dolores, you got a flight, man. You got to get going." You're going to, oh, yeah. So I see her all the time. I'm proud to say
wow.
that she had a big party about 5 years ago at the Greek at the Greek Theater. Have you ever been there? They're gonna
In
have
LA.
and also Mali in about 2 weeks. She had a big birthday party, but she was charging to get in, and she had Santana, right, Carlos Santana. And we get there, and it was sold out. Oh, my friend, we had
Oh,
stuff, and hey, you can't come in. You got no ticket. You can't bring in food. We
híjole.
didn't turn around the side, and we just cut the little clips that they had to the gate. We snuck in. Some proud to say I snuck into Dolores Huerta's birthday party. I tell her one time, she goes, "What? What?" She gets a good laugh of it. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm getting, I had an allergy this morning. I had to take my Claritin.
No, that's fine, hermano Carlos. I don't want to take any more
Yeah.
of your time. I appreciate the knowledge and the history. Live on Chicano Tube, you guys hit that like button right here. The co-founder of the Brown Berets, hermano. You have a contact in Salinas now. If anything needs to get
Yeah.
done, feel
Yeah.
free to reach out to me. Ahí tienes mi directa celular. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the history. Any last words that you want to tell Chicano Tube and the viewers?
Yeah, yeah. Look, see this T-shirt? John Louis Gazamo, my homie, just came out with a movie, three-part series called America Historia, the untold story of Chicanos and Latinos in the U.S. It's on PBS. You could download the app or PBS, or it might be a Hulu. It might be even a YouTube.
Mm,
And part three shows the walkouts, the Brown Beret, episode three, and also
mm.
MSN Ayuka and the farm workers. And then also look at my website, Carlos. Some of the young people finally created a website for me, carlosmontes.org. Has a lot of good videos and interviews of what we've done. I'm 77, but I'm still organized, still protesting. As long as I have health, I'm going to be fighting for our people, Chicano power.
That's
What
right.
do you think?
Viva la raza and que viva Chicano Power with Carlos Montes, the co-founder of the Brown Berets. You guys, I appreciate your time otra vez. Que pase buen día, mi hermano. Maybe this is just the beginning of our communications as well.
I nos vemos in Salinas. I got to get up there.
Ándale,
I
cuídate
go to
mucho, mi
San
hermano.
Juan every year, so I better go to Salinas. Órale, Mike. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, cuídate mucho. Ándale pues.